You know, even though I am a diehard New York Jets fan, when I launched this series breaking down the free agency draft, preseason expectations, and what we all expect from the year coming, I'm going to be completely honest. There is one team that I've actually been even more excited to cover than I was my own New York Jets, and that is the Cleveland Browns. Y'all have heard the whole saga. Y'all know what's going on. So we're going to cover that today. We're going to break it all down while it's still fresh because we finally got answers. And we're going to see how much that answer is going to affect what's coming. And today I've got the perfect guest to come on and talk Cleveland. I've got Noah Weiskopf coming on from Dog Pound Daily and I lost the Twitter feed, and from the a intern for the Schultz Report joining me today. How's it going, Noah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, mind blown.
Yeah, I think you're with a lot of people, so.
Then again, my mind's been blown since this whole saga began. We're going to get into all of that, but let's piece together the rest of what this series has been first. Moving with your free agency for the Browns, because you guys have done a lot. Shall we talk about arguably the second biggest move you've made this season or off season? A certain top 10 wide receiver that you brought in?
Yeah, Amari Cooper.
Yeah. I mean, looking at how dominant he's been with the Cowboys for the past 4 or 5 years, and knowing that you guys haven't had a true number one since Odell took off, and arguably even before that, because he didn't really work out for you to begin with.
Right.
Like, you definitely became a solid air threat just with that signing. You also brought in Jakeem Grant and Jamarcus Bradley. Yeah, you lost Jarvis Landry and Rashad Higgins and Ryan Switzer. But I'd say you re-signed Jamarcus Bradley, but the things that you brought in, I think, outweigh what went out.
100%. And I'll just start it off by talking about Jakeem Grant really quick, because to be honest with you, there's not too much to talk about. They brought him in on a 1 year, or it was not a 1 year deal. It was a multi-year deal, I think. They signed him this offseason.
Let me see what Spot Rec's saying on that one.
As a speedster return guy who they wanted to put back there to be an immediate threat every single time the ball is kicked off, punted, kicked off, anything. Go ahead.
I was just going to fill in that according to Spot Rack, it was a 3-year, $10 million deal.
Yeah. So they were really, really excited about him. They wanted him as the speedster guy to be a threat every time the ball is kicked off, every time the ball is punted. And they were even really looking forward to seeing him as a receiver and kind of a motion guy behind the line of scrimmage, getting him the ball on the outsides to create for the offense. But unfortunately, he ruptured his Achilles tendon in practice. It was on Tuesday in training camp while I was down there, actually. So he got carted off, MRI confirmed, he's done for the season. So big loss. The Browns were looking forward to seeing him and everything he could do on the field. But Amari Cooper, huge trade for this team. Didn't give up too much. I think it was a conditional 5th. And we didn't see too much before he was traded here. Maybe a day or two before, there was a report saying that the Browns were one of the teams, and Andrew Berry went out and made that move. Like you said, OBJ was that hope. Ever since he got here was the hope, like a true number one. Finally, that never worked out. And now they can bring in Amari Cooper, who's excited to be here and who's been having a pretty good camp, aside from an injury or two at the very beginning, missed a practice session or two at the very beginning of camp. But otherwise, he's been pretty solid so far.
Looking at what he's done with the Cowboys, the Browns don't usually get a set and forget spot on my roster, but if I can draft Amari Cooper, in any of my 3 drafts coming up next week. I think that might be the case for once.
Yeah, I'm not sure fantasy wise how productive he'll be, especially with Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 games. But yeah, it's worth. He's the number one. It's worth a shot for fantasy. Why not, right?
For sure. Running backs, not much to discuss. No big names have gone anywhere. You lost Dexter Williams to the Packers, and T. Harbinson is still sitting as a free agent. Re-signed Dearness Johnson and John Kelly.
Actually, the running back room is one of the probably the most interesting competitions right now. So we have a ton of guys in that room. We can break it down. Nick Chubb, obviously going to make the roster, going to have a huge impact for the team this year. Kareem Hunt had sort of a holdout kind of situation last week. He's interested in getting an extension with the team. He's heading on to the last year of his deal. And I'll tell you, it doesn't look like they're going to give him an extension this offseason. So we'll probably wait and see. He'll definitely be, I don't want to say definitely because you can never say definitely or definitely not in this league, but he'll more than likely be playing out the season in Cleveland. The Browns have no interest in trading for him. He did request a trade. The Browns told him no. They want his contribution on the field this year. But hopefully next offseason, if the team feels like they need to bring him back, then they will. But I talked to Kareem at his youth camp at his alma mater, Willoughby South, this summer, and he all he wants to do is stay in Cleveland. Cleveland's his home city, the team that gave him a second chance after Kansas City. But we'll just see. I mean, it takes 2 to tango, so we'll see if Andrew Berry and them feel comfortable enough paying him, even though they're also paying Nick Chubb top dollar. But even behind him, it gets really interesting with Dearness Johnson, who they did re-sign this offseason, who's fighting for a roster spot. Then they drafted Jerome Ford, who's also been having a really, really good camp in the first preseason game. And then Demetric Felton, who's had a pretty good camp as well.
Okay, we'll definitely be covering more on the rookies when we get to the draft part. Tight end, you took a bit of a hit. Austin Hooper moved on to Tennessee. However, you still have a very solid lead with David Njoku.
Yeah, this team loves David Njoku. He's a big tight end, can make catches over defenders. And they proved that to him by extending him. So he's on a big money extension. Then they have Harrison Bryant right behind him. And then kind of a big fight for the tight end 3 position. A guy I really like, his name is Nakia Griffin-Stewart. He had a pretty good game in the first preseason game. So we'll see who comes out on top with that competition at tight end.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through to see what other positions are worth mentioning.
Good.
A big pickup from Jacksonville with Taven Bryan.
Yeah, he's a guy that the Browns love. Former first-round pick, didn't quite make it click in Jacksonville. So he'll be a starter on that defensive line and be in the rotation to make some big-time plays. He'll have a good opportunity here.
I'm only seeing one that got moved to another team with Ifedi. I'm going to butcher this last name.
Yeah.
Denigbo?
Yeah.
Moved on to the Colts?
Yeah. He didn't get too many opportunities last year. So that wasn't one of the big time moves, but just depth. They signed a bunch of guys too, but I think we're going to get into that, but they did sign a bunch of guys on the edge, depth guys. So
yeah. The names I'm seeing here from the Jags, we already said Taven Bryan, Isaac Rochelle from the Colts, and Chase Winovich from the Pats.
Yeah, so they traded Mac Wilson for Winovich earlier this offseason, a guy that he's just going to give you solid depth. And same with Isaac Rochelle. He's had a decently productive career. A lot of people know him from his social media presence, but he had a big game in the first preseason game. So they're looking forward to both of those guys just as depth guys and rotational guys to just keep fresh and sub in for Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, who they also re-signed this offseason.
Yeah, I see that. On the edge, it's looking like one out, one in. Losing Porter Gustin to the Miami, but I'd say a slight upgrade on that field, bringing in former Bronco Stephen Weatherly.
Yeah, I think Weatherly is hurt. I don't remember if they placed him on season ending. I don't remember, but he had an injury. They might have placed him on IR, which would have ended his season. But yeah, again, I mean, they have a ton of guys over there at DN, and we're going to talk about the draft, but Alex Wright is in there as well, who they're excited for. So they have a good amount of depth on that defensive line.
Okay. I'm looking at linebackers. Elijah Lee left to go to Kansas, as did Mac Wilson get traded to the Patriots. But you brought in two depth guys with Dakota Allen and Jordan Kanazik.
Yeah, both of those guys also depth, but they re-signed Anthony Walker, who's going to be their starter, and then they're really excited for Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to take a big leap from his phenomenal rookie year.
Lost a little bit of a hit on safety with MJ Stewart going to Houston. At depth, you also lost Duke Dawson to the Panthers.
Yeah, safety wasn't as big of a concern. They're really excited for Grant Delpit, who had an injury. He ruptured his Achilles during his first camp as a rookie. Played a little bit last year, but still dealt with an injury. And then he's expected to take a pretty big step. And they went out and re-signed Ronnie Harrison, which is a pretty big deal for them, out to a 1-year deal. So they've got a set of 3 safeties in John Johnson, Grant Delpit, and Ronnie Harrison, who are going to be rotating and all getting valuable time.
A big hit here, moving over to cornerback as we're finishing the rapid fire run through of the free agent in and outs. But Troy Hill traded to the Rams.
Yeah, that was a draft night move. There's a lot of good corners on this team. It was a question when it happened, but the more we look at it, Greg Newsome's going to have a pretty big role. They drafted MJ Stewart, or I'm sorry, not MJ Stewart. They drafted MJ Emerson, and they also have Greedy Williams. So it was a really crowded room, and he was just the lone guy out, and he's going back to where we got him from in Cleveland, or where we got him from the Rams. So.
Okay. The last position on the list here that we're going to talk about now. Punter, you lost your punter, brought in a punter. Sorry.
Yes.
Corey Bjorkquist from the Packers.
Yeah. Not too much about him, but he had a pretty productive career in his time in Green Bay. So a solid punter. He's had a pretty good training camp and preseason week 1 game, from what I remember.
Okay. As soon as this loads, we're going to move on to the draft. Now, I do tend to start with the draft, starting at the bottom of the list and work our way towards the front.
Okay.
Save the best for last.
Let's do it.
Where the hell? Give me 1 second. My other computer is being a pain right now.
All good.
All right. You had 2 7th-round picks. Pick number 246 for a center from Texas Tech, Dawson Dayton, and pick 223 for Oklahoma edge rush Isaiah Thomas. Do you see either of them having any impact this year, or are they more depth and developmental?
So Dawson Deaton, definitely not. He tore his ACL in practice the other day, so he is done for the year. And Isaiah Thomas has had an amazing camp. He's coming off, I think, a hand injury. He was in a cast a couple days ago. Kevin Stefanski said it was just a day-to-day injury. He'd be back very shortly, but he had a phenomenal game against the Jaguars preseason week 1. A couple really big plays, a sack or 2, and they're really excited to have him on the roster. So he's a lock to make the roster, and he'll get a little bit of time as a rotational guy on that defensive end.
Okay, so a 7th rounder that's actually going to be on the squad.
Yes, for sure.
That's a big late lucky pick.
Yeah, they're really they like him.
6th round, you had 1 pick, number 24, or pick number 202, wide receiver out of Oklahoma, Mike Woods.
Another Oklahoma guy who had a really good camp. He also has a hamstring injury. He's been out for a little while, but he had one of arguably the strongest start to camp at receiver. Behind the top few guys, they needed a couple other people for the roster, and he'll make it. He'll make it for sure.
So where do you see him? Like 3rd string, 4th string?
I'll probably be missing some, but Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones will be the top 2. They just lost Jakeem Grant We'll get to David Bell in a second, but he'll be up there. I'm probably missing one person that I can't think of right now. But yeah, he'll probably be 5 or 6.
Okay. 5th round pick out of Cincinnati, running back Jerome Ford, pick number 156.
Yep. He'll make the team. This regime and Andrew Berry in this front office, they don't make a lot of draft picks that don't make their team. So he'll make it. He had a huge game as well in the preseason. I think he scored twice, once on the ground, once receiving. He had a fumble late, but he's been having a good camp as well. So he'll make it in that crowded running back room. He'll make it.
Okay. A lot of confidence shown in the draft so far. I like it. Moving on to the 4th round, you had 2 picks. Pick number 124, LSU kicker Cade York. And pick number 108, defensive tackle from Oklahoma, Perion Winfrey.
Yeah, Cade York, we can start with him because he won the award voted on by local media here for best rookie in camp. He's only missed 2 field goals throughout camp. So he has a phenomenal leg. Everyone in Cleveland is excited. We finally have a kicker. And everyone's pretty much hoping that he's the guy, the next Phil Dawson, to just put out there and bank on him making it, sort of like Evan McPherson, who they missed out on last year. And then Perion Winfrey is a guy that is going to be a rotational defensive tackle who they're hoping can one day be probably a big time player for them, but definitely bringing the juice. He made a big impact right on draft night with his Zoom interview with reporters and the barking, and he's a guy that he brings it. His teammates love him. So
tell you what, the comparison you just made, you're giving Cade York some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I mean that's the expectation here. The Browns hope that he is their guy. They don't have to worry about it. Look for any other kickers. I mean, it's almost identical to the Evan McPherson pick last year for the Bengals. I think the Browns were 1 or 2 picks behind the Bengals when they drafted McPherson, and reports came out since that they were drafting McPherson if he was there, but the Bengals took him 1 or 2 picks before. So they've been looking for this kind of kicker for a while, and throughout camp just shown nothing but promise by only missing 2 field goals so far. So,
okay, I know we're talking Browns, but since you just missed him, let's take a small segue. I'm assuming you watched the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Can we both agree that Evan McPherson is like our favorite football player after the halftime show last year?
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I enjoyed watching that. That was funny.
The fact that he said, screw the team meeting at halftime, I'm staying out here to watch the throwbacks.
Hey, that's the kind of stuff you can do when you're drilling all those game winners during the season. So,
I never thought I'd buy a AFC North jersey, but I might buy a McPherson jersey just because of that.
Yeah, that would be worth it.
Round 3, you had a trio in this round. You already mentioned 2 of the 3 names. Pick 99, wide receiver from Purdue, David Bell. Pick 78 from UAB. I don't even know what that is. Defensive end, Alex Wright. And Mississippi State cornerback, Martin Emerson.
Yeah, we can start with David Bell. I made reports about all 3 of these guys. I spoke to a bunch of people who were close to them just to try to get a sense of how they were in college and how those people predict that he'll play. Those 3 guys will play in the NFL. David Bell, a guy that Kevin Stefanski said like they need him before the draft started. Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry talking. Stefanski told him, "Listen, we need this guy on our roster. However we can get him, we need him." So Purdue wide receiver, they're really excited for. Great route runner. Suffered an injury in OTAs, but he's now ramping back up in practice. He'll get a big role this season as a rookie. Alex Wright is a guy who's pretty raw. He has the physicality to be really good, and especially learning behind guys like Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. And as a 3rd round pick, the team expects a lot from him as well. And then lastly, MJ Emerson, their first pick that they had in the draft, a really big corner, long arms. And he has shown that I'm not sure if you saw the highlight, but from the first preseason game, a receiver made a catch on him, and he straight up took the ball out of the receiver's hands and ran it back the other way for a touchdown. So he's going to probably start on the outside across from Denzel Ward, and then Greg Newsome's going to see some time in the slot this year.
Now, you'd mentioned that Emerson was the first pick you guys had this year. And yes, we'd already said this was third round, but that's because you didn't have a first or second rounder this year. And I don't think you have a first rounder for the next 2 years either, because
Correct.
of arguably the biggest blockbuster move of this offseason.
I mean,
it may be second to the Russell Wilson trade, but they're comparable.
100%. It's arguably the biggest trade of all time in the NFL. But I do want to just quickly say that they did have a second round pick. They traded back on draft night, back to the third, and then took Emerson there in the third. But they did have a second round pick, and they traded out of it.
Oh, okay. But the I don't even know how to say this without getting tongue-tied, because this whole saga is still just blowing my mind. But it was what? 3 firsts, a second, and a fifth?
It was 3 firsts in this past draft, 23 and 24, a third in this past draft, and then a fourth in 2024. And then they also got back Watson and then a 6th rounder in 24.
But quarterbacks must come at a premium, because 3 firsts, a second, and a fifth for one player, and a 6th round pick. It almost seems like selling the farm to buy a cow.
Yeah, I mean, this front office saw him available. A 26-year-old quarterback right in the midst of his prime, he has proven himself in this league as a top 5 quarterback when he's playing. They couldn't miss out on him, was their thought, given the $230 million contract fully guaranteed, which was the last thing. He wasn't going to come here. And then, I mean, he looked again at this roster, and then obviously the $230 million guaranteed, and was like, yep, I'm coming there. So yeah, they felt that they needed to get this done if they want to make a Super Bowl run in their time frame, which is now for the next year or two.
Okay. Now this whole saga, like I'm going to try and word this in a way that's not going to offend, but for me, looking back at Houston, looking at the receiving core he had between Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and I'm drawing a blank on who the third was.
Kenny Stills for a little while.
Who was it?
Kenny Stills for a little while.
I think that's it. But between the 3 of those, I'm sitting back thinking that with the talent on that receiving core, they could have made Geno Smith look like an all-star.
Yeah, you would think. A lot of people in Cleveland have been this offseason calling for them to sign another receiver, and Will Fuller has been a name that's been brought up a ton around here. So there's obviously something that isn't adding up, that the front office isn't too comfortable about, because I know they've had conversations about Will Fuller because of his connection with Watson, but ultimately did not bring him in. But the receiving room gets a little thin after the top few guys. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a 6th round pick, but expected to take a big step this season. And then David Bell, who's a rookie. So they still have a lot of guys who are pretty unproven, but Amari Cooper leading the way is definitely a huge help.
For sure. But the train of thought I was trying to work my way into is you've got DeSean Watson, who, yes, his offensive line was absolute garbage down in Houston.
Yep.
But he had probably one of the better stud receiving cores in the league at that point. Moving on, for as much as you gave up for him, to bring him in at the expense of completely alienating and pissing Baker Mayfield, who is at this juncture the most winning quarterback in your franchise's history, got you your first string of wins after you damn near went 2 complete seasons without one. Your first playoff appearance in a decade, and your first playoff win in over 15 years. you bring Watson in and piss that guy off enough that you have to cut ties and send him away. And at this point, for this year coming, Cleveland is going to be paying DeSean Watson almost $1 million to not play for them. And now they're also going to be playing Baker Mayfield $10 million to not play for them. Like, from an outsider looking in, help this make sense to us.
Yeah, so at the beginning of this offseason, Andrew Berry and Baker Mayfield's agent spoke at the Combine. Baker's coming off of a injury-riddled season that he chose to play through and ultimately did not have a successful season. He's had a pretty up-and-down career, believe it or not, in Cleveland. His rookie year, he played phenomenal. Second year with Freddie Kitchens, not there. Third year, played pretty well. And then here we are with that injury-riddled season, heading into his fifth year, a contract year. Andrew Berry told his agent that, listen, Baker's our starter for another year. Unless we see some other upgrade, then we're going to pursue that upgrade. They didn't feel that Baker would be the guy that's going to be able to win them a Super Bowl. They didn't think that he had that it factor to him like Watson does on the field. So Baker was planning on being the team starter. And then once they found out that Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam, the owner, went down to Houston to meet with DeSean Watson in person to try to pitch him a sale as to why he should come to Cleveland, that kind of pissed Baker off. And that's at that time, he requested a trade out of Cleveland, and the Browns told him no. And they felt that as if they let him and his agent know that if there was a quarterback that became available who was a massive upgrade over him, then they would pursue him. And at that time that he requested the trade, they had not acquired DeSean Watson yet, and they did not know if they would get him. So they did not, they told him no as that trade request. And then they eventually ended up getting Watson and ultimately trading him to Carolina. But, Jimmy G got brought up a lot too while the Browns were in on Watson. And Jimmy G is someone that they looked at and they did some research on, but they didn't feel that he was a big enough upgrade over Baker to trade an asset for him. So Watson ultimately ended up in Cleveland, and the Browns shipped Baker to Carolina, where he will get the chance to start Week 1 against the Cleveland Browns,
which I think is going to be one of the must-see matchups of the season. But something you said there, like, I don't know if you noticed my facial expression shift, but so Garoppolo, looking at how phenomenal he's been doing over in San Fran, knowing that he was like pretty much groomed for the starting job in the NFL by what many people are calling the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. And they're saying he wasn't a big enough upgrade, but DeSean Watson was?
Correct. DeSean Watson, they see as a guy who is a top 5 quarterback in this league. And Jimmy G, I can't give you an explanation as to why they think that. All I can tell you is that they thought that Baker Mayfield, they might as well ride it out with him, pay him the money that they owe him for one more season, and then see where they're at and reassess after the year. But yeah, Jimmy G was a guy that they talked about internally and a guy that they felt wasn't a big enough upgrade over Baker to bring him in and to give him a year with the team and see how he fares. And even Jimmy G is a name that's continued to be brought up because of Watson's suspension.
You're not the only team that's hearing his name left and right.
That is true. But, I wrote a piece on Dog Pound Daily a week ago about Jimmy G and about how it just made a lot of sense. Even with Watson here, if he was suspended, now we know he's not, but if he would have been suspended for a year, it would have made a lot of sense to bring him in with the roster you have and just let him play a year. And then I don't see why he wouldn't come here. I also added in that article that I didn't think Andrew Berry would make a trade for him, especially with the money he's owed. I don't think he'd give up any draft compensation for him, but we could have been looking at it potentially if he got released. Then there obviously would have been a bigger market with teams like Seattle maybe, and I know a ton of other teams are rumored to have interest in him. But if he was released, it might have gotten a little interesting. But now, even with Jacoby Brissett, what I've been seeing is that they don't feel as if Jimmy G is even a big enough upgrade over Brissett to bring him in. So it just doesn't seem like this front office is interested in bringing in Garoppolo, and they're going to have Brissett go out there. They feel really comfortable with him. Kevin Stefanski reiterated that today, as well as Andrew Berry and their pressers. But yeah, they're going to roll with Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 games, and then Watson's going to come in and try to get them back to the playoffs. Again, I can't explain to you why they're not high on Jimmy G, who's a proven winner in this league, but it is what it is.
I'm just like completely flabbergasted that that's your front office's mentality.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the money as well.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm looking back at what both of them have done with their careers to this juncture.
Right.
Between Watson and Garoppolo, and like I'm ranking them here.
I mean, to most of the people in Cleveland, talent-wise, Watson is just steps above Garoppolo. Just age and what Watson was able to do with that Texans team, that offensive line, that running game, and then looking at him in Cleveland with a top offensive line when they're healthy, a top running game, and then a guy like Amari Cooper on the outside. They're really excited for Watson, obviously. Excited enough to give him $230 million guaranteed.
Okay, I guess it doesn't make it's one of those situations where it's not going to make sense to everybody.
So let me ask you a question. From a football standpoint, you would rather have Jimmy Garoppolo over DeSean Watson?
Yes.
I think that's a very hot take. I think that's a very unpopular opinion, but I mean, Garoppolo has made it to the Super Bowl, so.
And with arguably teams as bad as what, not made it to the Super Bowl with it, but has had success with teams that that in the past were arguably as bad as what Houston was dealing with. I would say yes.
I probably tend to think that Jimmy Garoppolo's teams were better than the Texans in what DeSean was dealing with, just because of their defense. Their defense was so dominant. And then their running game is always good. And they had, the receivers, I don't think at the time of Super Bowl were that great, but their running game, offensive line has always been pretty solid for San Fran.
Okay.
Watson's defense Watson never had a defense. Even he never had a defense that what Cleveland's going to have, or what they hope to have this season. I mean, these defensive guys to each other, they're so close together, and they expect to have a top 5 season defensively.
Okay. The fun part of where everything breaks down with the way we've been doing the series, I usually have mine already pre-done and preset aside, but with the update today of missing 11 games, threw that out the window. But the other thing I've been doing is breaking down the season expectations week by week, and figuring out what the prediction is for the wins-loss record. And week 1, right off the bat, is going to be a huge one.
Yeah.
The return of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
And
Baker's going to come to play. But this defense, I know Baker gets a ton of talk about him playing Cleveland. He's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder. But this Browns defense is going to come out with just as big of a chip on their shoulder. They want to get after him.
Yes, I agree that it's going to be smash mouth when Carolina's offense and Cleveland's defense is both on the field.
It's going to be a fun game.
But the question mark comes in is what happens when Cleveland's offense is on the field and Carolina's defense.
Right.
And knowing that the Panthers are going to rally around their new quarterback, I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to be able to keep up with it. So I'm actually giving my week 1 prediction to Carolina.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fair. I'm not too much of a prediction guy, because especially with wins and losses, because it's so up in the air for NFL games. But yeah, I mean, having Carolina over Cleveland week 1 is obviously a very realistic possibility. Again, like I mentioned, this team and organization is really, really comfortable with Jacoby Brissett as a veteran type of player who's had opportunities to start in the past in this quarterback-friendly scheme. So, we'll see what happens. But that running game, they're going to probably rely on pretty heavily for Cleveland. So we'll see. It'll be a really fun game. It should be really good.
So you don't do wins losses?
I normally don't. It's just I could get behind giving the win to Carolina, to be completely honest with you.
Okay. Week 2, a game that I will be watching, and if I can figure out how to do a stream party on here by then, I would love to have you on for, because I'm trying to figure out which is home and which is away.
The Jets is home.
Okay,
This is their
so
home opener, and then the
week
Panthers are away.
okay, so week 2, September 18th, the Browns travel to play my New York Jets.
It's here. It's in Cleveland.
Oh, that one's in Cleveland. Okay.
Panthers is in Carolina. Jets is their the home opener for Cleveland. Yep.
All right, never mind. A game that I wish I would have realized, because I would have probably gotten tickets to that in place of the game that I'm going to, or hell, it's knowing how cheap they were last time, I might make the trip again. But because before we talk about this game itself, a little bit of history here. Going back to somewhere around late September 2018, I made that week 3 Thursday night drive to Cleveland.
Yeah.
To watch the Jets play, and this was the game where the Jets knocked Tyrod Taylor the fuck out, and Baker got to play.
Yep. I mean, I was there as well. It was electric.
Remembering that it was 14-3 at halftime, and the fact that the Browns came back to win it, if I'm not mistaken, the final score was 23-17 on Baker Mayfield's shoulders.
Yeah.
Knowing how electric, as you were saying, that crowd was, is something I'll never forget.
Yeah. I mean, same here. That was amazing. Opened up the beer coolers, and what a night in Cleveland.
Oh, but I will say this. You guys have a very passionate fan base over there.
I mean, that's an understatement too. Fans are great.
Between the chance of asshole I was getting as soon as I got out of the cab in front of the stadium, to the ravenous chance of Baker Mayfield walking into the building all through the first half, all through halftime, beginning of the second half, and especially when Tyrod went down. Oh,
yeah, the Browns fans will give it to you, but they match up with the other AFC North fans as well. I don't know if you ever, whoever for the Jets, have you been to a divisional game against the Jets away?
No, I have not. Even though I'm a diehard New York Jets fan, I actually live in Weirton, West Virginia, which is that little finger between Pennsylvania and Ohio. So it's basically a suburb of Pittsburgh.
It's probably pretty bad as a Jets fan to go to Buffalo or something like that. But yeah, they match the energy of these Steelers fans and Ravens fans, and even the Bengals fans now have something to cheer about. So all the fans in the AFC North, hectic, but Browns fans are nuts.
But the other part I won't forget is driving up, 8th Street after the game, trying to get back to the highway or to Route 80 to come back home. Just me sitting there in my van, slowly creeping along traffic, all the people walking back and forth up 8th Street. I still had on my Braylon Edwards jersey. Green Braylon Edwards jersey. I don't think I've ever seen so many middle fingers pointed my way.
Yeah, I mean, again, those fans will give it to you, especially after a beer or two.
And don't worry, when I go October 2nd this year to Acrisure Stadium to see the Jets play the Steelers, I'll be wearing my Santonio Holmes jersey for that one too.
Yeah, the Steelers fans, they'll give it to you as well.
But anyways, back to Browns Jets. This one's a tough call for me. And no, I'm not saying that because I'm a Jets fan, because in all honesty, Cleveland's probably my second favorite team because of that game back in 2018. But you're looking at the Browns, who've been competitive the past few years as it is, who have now a true number one receiver. But with Jacoby Brissett under center versus the Jets, who are arguably the most improved team this offseason, I'm going to flip a coin on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a good game, but I also feel that the Browns will probably come out on top of this just with their home opener, that defense, and then that running game is probably just going to be a little bit too much for the Jets. But again, like as I said before, any team can win any game in this league. So it'll be a good one as well. Those first two games will be pretty good.
All right, you're giving it a win. I can't even make up my call on this one, so I'm just going to do something I haven't done before in this entire series, and I'm going to predict a tie.
Okay.
Week 3, you're at home again against the Steelers.
Those games, every single one of those games, you can flip a coin for, regardless of anything. Those Steelers Browns games are just gritty, always gritty games. Are you asking me to pick a winner for that one? In Cleveland, I think it's a Thursday night football game as well.
8:15 on the 22nd. Yeah, looking at the short days, yes, I believe that is Thursday night game.
Yeah. I mean, what a toss-up, but Pittsburgh has had Cleveland's number for way too long for me to say that Cleveland's going to win that game. So I'll give it to Pittsburgh to come into Cleveland. But, you can also never – the Browns are probably going to split with Pittsburgh. So I guess on their next game, I usually pick the splits against the Steelers, Ravens, and usually Bengals as well, to be completely honest with you, even though the Browns have had the Bengals number for years now.
Okay, see, this is where I'm going to take the opposite end. Yes, for the first 11 weeks, you guys don't have your quarterback. But Jacoby Brissett, with his time in, where did he start? New England, right?
I think he started in New England, went to Miami, and then he was with the Colts.
But he was serviceable in New England. I think he can carry the team.
Yeah, I mean, he can win games. He can definitely win games. So
go ahead.
I could take the Browns at home and then say that the Browns will take the loss at Steelers. Either way, they're going to split, I think.
I'm looking at it this way, though. Even though, like I said, you're missing, you don't have your quarterback for the first 11 weeks. Pittsburgh doesn't have a quarterback, period.
Yeah, of course,
because
Mike Tomlin and those guys are still going to find a way to finish 500. But that defense and then just Mike Tomlin leading that team, I'm sure they'll have a pretty productive season. But I think Trubisky I don't think he's as bad as people are making him out to be. Again, this dude was a Pro Bowler. He made a Pro Bowl. Sat behind Josh Allen for a year. So we'll see what happens.
All I know is looking at Pittsburgh's training camp preseason, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion to voice, being from Pittsburgh, knowing the fan base's feelings. But looking through training camp and that preseason game, the front runner, the one that should have the starting job week 1, ain't going to happen. But the one that deserves the starting job week 1 is Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, I mean, that quarterback room is really interesting with Trubisky, Rudolph, and then their first-round pick, Kenny Pickett. They're going to make him a third stringer. Like, to me, they got a situation there. I think you could even make a case for Pickett to start week 1. But Trubisky's probably going to get that nod from everything I've seen, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
For Pittsburgh's sake, unfortunately.
We'll see what happens. Only time will tell.
Because I'm sitting here looking at their depth chart and the way they're planning it for week 1, with Trubisky being the starter, Pickett being second string, I believe, and Rudolph being third string. And I'm going to be honest, that whole depth chart with preseason performances should be flipped 180.
Yeah, you could probably make a case for all 3 of those guys to be the starters, to be honest with you.
But as I was getting at, and the fact that Pittsburgh right now has 3 quarterbacks that they're like still in hot contention with. Any team that has 3 quarterbacks has none.
Yeah.
And I've got more faith in Brissett than I do any of the three in Pittsburgh. So I'm giving week 3 to Cleveland.
Okay.
Week 4, back on the road, Atlanta.
I mean, I'll give the Browns a nod there. Marcus Mariota. They'll just have to try to contain Kyle Pitts. I don't think their defense made any huge moves this offseason. So yeah, I'll give the nod to the Browns there.
I would normally have said Atlanta, but the fact that they no longer have Matt Ryan,
right?
I'm not sold on Kyle Pitts, and Mariota's never really done much worth mentioning. I'm giving another win to Cleveland.
Yeah, I think Kyle Pitts is actually gonna have a huge year, to be honest with you. Marcus Mariota in Tennessee made Delaney Walker a really, really good tight end, and Kyle Pitts is he's 6, however tall he is. He's a tall dude. He can line up outside. He can do a lot of things. So I think he's gonna have a pretty big year on that team.
Okay.
Again, I mean, I'll just give the Browns. I mean, this roster on the Browns, aside from quarterback, top offensive line, again, top running game, a good, really, really good wide receiver 1, and a little bit of depth behind him, and then a top defense. Like, this roster is ready to like win a Super Bowl with a good quarterback. So again, I'll give them the win on that one.
Okay. Week 5. This one we might split on. I think we probably both have the same opinion, though. At home, but you're hosting the Chargers.
Yeah, I'll give the win of the Chargers. That offense with Herbert and all those guys, and then their defense, they got Khalil Mack. Like that, I think they're a Super Bowl team, to be honest with you. That's a great team over there.
I definitely have them winning the AFC West.
Yeah, and last year when the Browns was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago, I think the Browns and Baker Mayfield played in LA, and I mean, I think this final score is 47-42 or something like that. The Chargers got us, but Chargers got the Browns. Yeah. I mean Herbert.
Give him another couple years here, and I can definitely see Herbert being one of the elites.
Oh yeah, and if he's not already not right there anyway. I mean, he's been amazing. And ironically enough, you went to that Jets game with Tyrod Taylor. The Chargers medical team nearly almost killed Tyrod Taylor, which is what gave Herbert the nod there. So yeah.
If you haven't looked it up, haven't seen this video yet, there is I can't remember the name of the guy that does it, the YouTuber that does it, but he breaks down like NFL history, like team histories, weird facts, records that are never going to be broken. All every year's Mr. Irrelevant. He does like all sorts of NFL like history videos, and there was the video of he did a video specifically on Tyrod Taylor, pretty much calling him a kingmaker because everywhere he goes, the next man up ends up being an all-star, ends up being a complete and total freaking baller.
Yeah. I mean, it's just very ironic, to say the least.
Like they said, he has pretty much been a career maker because the next guy up has ended up being a star. And you know what? It's honestly pretty accurate looking at where he's been.
Yeah. Baker didn't quite end up as planned in Cleveland, but maybe he can turn his career around in Carolina. But yeah, definitely with Herbert, absolute baller. Herbert's a baller.
Moving on, week 6, you got the Patriots. You're still at home.
Another tough game. I think that one's, to be honest, is a toss-up, but I'll give Belichick the nod there. I mean, he, especially after watching what happened last season, Patriots just blew the Browns out of the water. Brissett, again, has been in New England, so Bill Belichick probably has some notes on him. Just tough to beat Bill Belichick in general.
Okay. I'm actually looking at the fact that Jacoby Brissett has been in New England as the reason why I'm giving Cleveland the win.
Okay.
Because he's played under Belichick. He knows Belichick's mind.
Yeah. That's true. Could go both ways though.
Okay, now you're back on the road for another divisional matchup. Ravens, week 7.
That'll be a really good game. This defense is definitely looking to get after Lamar as they always are. But I'll give it to the Ravens. Just in Baltimore, Jacoby Brissett is your starter. But again, Jacoby Brissett will keep this team in games. He's not as bad as, I don't want to make him sound as he's that bad, but I mean he'll keep this team in games. Just the Ravens, they'll come out to play as they always do.
See, the script on this one at this point, since it's only week 7, really you got to look at it this way. You've got a team that's missing their quarterback versus a team that's arguably at this point nothing but a quarterback.
I mean, that defense is always pretty good, though.
I'm strictly speaking offense-wise. Because, I mean, other than Mark Andrews, who does Lamar Jackson have?
That is true. I'm sure that the Ravens are looking forward to see Rashad Bateman take another step. I think they signed a receiver this offseason, but no big name. It was a smaller.
There was one.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown.
Who was it?
Or Hollywood Brown.
Well, they moved him.
Oh, he went from the Ravens to Tennessee.
Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. They traded him on draft night for that 23rd overall pick to Arizona. And then A.J. Brown is the Titans guy who was traded on draft night to the Eagles. A.J. Brown and Marquise Brown.
Oh, I must be having them confused because I thought it was from Titans to Ravens. My bad.
Titans to Eagles, Ravens to Cardinals.
Okay, then I'm completely I don't know why I had that confused. Probably because of the last name Brown.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, yeah, even more so looking into that. Why Lamar Jackson's good and he's got great chemistry with Mark Andrews, but every defense in the league is going to know that and double cover Andrews. Cleveland's got too good of a defense for Lamar to win it just on his own feet. So I'm giving you guys another win.
Okay.
Next week, October 31st, Halloween game. If I'm not mistaken, this Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football. Yep, that's correct.
Against the Bengals
in Cleveland. Yep. Another great game. The Bengals are going to be out to get Jacoby Brissett. Again, the Baker, I don't think he ever lost to the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe one time, but he has had the Bengals number and performed so well against the Bengals. Again, this one's another divisional toss-up that I think they're going to split. But I'll give the Browns the nod. Halloween night at home. Again, Watson's going to be back by the time they play Cincinnati the second time. So, yeah. Actually, you know what? I'll give the Browns the win. I'll give the Browns the win that night.
Okay, so you're switching that to the Browns. Okay. All right. Next week. Or no, sorry, you get your bye week. Then your first game back is on the road, Miami.
Another great game. Miami, big offseason for Miami with bringing in Tyreek Hill.
Yes.
I feel like, to be honest with you, another toss-up game. What are you thinking? I could see the Browns going into Miami and winning that game. Brissett's been in Miami he was in there for a couple of years in Miami. So he'll definitely want to win that game.
You see, I'm looking at everything that both teams are looking at as pretty equal right now. Yeah, the Dolphins brought in Tyreek Hill, but you guys brought in Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Jacoby Brissett isn't a star quality quarterback. So I'm not entirely sold on him, but at the same time, I'm not entirely sold on Tua Tagovailoa either.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what they did defensively, but I know they also brought in a lot of running backs. Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Chase Edmonds. And then they still have Myles Gaskin. So that's a pretty loaded running back room over there too.
But do any of them level or match up to the tandem you guys have with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb? I'm going to say no.
No, they do not.
Defense side of the ball, I think Cleveland has the edge.
Yeah, this Cleveland defense, I say it time and time again, but they're going to be right up there with one of the best talent across the board, pending injuries.
That all taken into consideration, I'm actually giving Cleveland a win.
Okay.
Which way are you going?
I'll give Cleveland the win as well. Yeah.
All right. After the Dolphins, moving on to week 10, you guys are on the road again, Buffalo.
Yeah, I'll give that one to Buffalo.
Yeah, I think I'm going the same route.
Yeah, Josh Allen and that defense, and Josh Allen and Diggs and Gabriel Davis now coming along. I mean, yeah.
And Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen.
All right, so we both took an L for Cleveland on that one. Next, you're back home November 27th, and once again, Tom Brady signing himself out of the nursing home to come play football.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go the hot take here. I think that the Browns are going to come out of the gates here and have an opportunity to play the GOAT. I think that defense is going to step up, and that offense, I mean, that offense is going to try to put points and try to go right along with Tom Brady. So I'll give the win to the Browns, especially the fact that that team knows that their star quarterback is going to be back the next week. They're going to be ramped up to try to get Jacoby Brissett that last win before he goes right down behind DeSean Watson. So I'll give that win to Cleveland, but obviously the GOAT, never count him out. So
now, hold on. I'm drawing a blank here. When Tom left for Tampa originally, who was it that was his backup?
In
New England.
Well, they had Brian Hoyer as their backup.
Was it Brissett or was it Jarrett Stidham?
I think it was Stidham.
Okay, never mind then.
I think at that time Brissett was in Miami.
Okay, well then we're good, because I was going to add another parallel to the story there, but Brady versus the one that was up next. But if it was Stidham, then never mind. That's moot point.
I could be wrong, but I think.
Do you want to talk about ironic, like perfect irony?
Yeah.
Moving on to week 13.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you finally get DeSean Watson back.
Yeah.
You are on the road.
Yep.
And his first game back, he doesn't really feel like he's left anywhere because he's right back in Houston.
Yep. That's been a storyline all day today. As soon as that 11-game suspension came out, I tweeted about that. There were a couple of reports actually that the NFL did not want Watson to be able to play in that game. And turns out they made it 11, and his first game back is right back where he started in Houston. What an electric game that's going to be.
I might have to tune into that 1 o'clock just to hear how loud the boos are.
Yeah. Watson, I'll tell you, he's expecting those boos. Wherever he goes. Everywhere. Every game. Even some in Cleveland. We'll see. Probably overwhelming claps, but maybe a couple boos mixed in.
Okay, which way are you going on this one?
I'll give it to Watson. He's going to come out serving an 11-game suspension. He's going to be rusty. Don't get me wrong. The first half might be a little rough, but I think like that second half, he's going to come out slinging it. Personally.
Okay, I'm actually giving it to Cleveland as well.
Yeah, that defense against Davis Mills, like they're going to want to fight till the end for DeSean Watson. He's been a great teammate, and they can't. They're so excited to have an elite quarterback lead the way.
Okay. Speaking of elite quarterbacks, moving on to December 11th.
Yeah.
You guys are still on the road, this time visiting Cincinnati.
Yeah. believe I gave Cincinnati the loss the first time on Halloween. I'll give them the win. I'll give them Cincinnati. I'll give Cincinnati the win. So they split the series. Watson's first game in Cincinnati, obviously. Yeah, I'll give Joe Burrow and the Bengals that win.
Okay. I'm giving it the Bengals.
Yep.
All right. 4 games left. So week 15. You guys are back home. You got the Ravens coming to town.
Yeah, that's going to be DeSean Watson's first game at First Energy Stadium. I think I gave the Ravens the win the first time they meet, and I'll give the Browns the split here as well. Watson's first game at home, and the Ravens haven't seen what firsthand. They haven't seen what DeSean will be like in Cleveland, assuming everything is going well. He'll have 2 games to knock the rust off, and in a pretty big game that will more than likely be prime time as long as both teams are still in it for the playoffs. Time is still to be determined for that game. So they left that one open as a divisional game. Probably flex that to 425 or Sunday Night Football. But yeah, I'll give that one to the Browns at home.
Okay. I'm also giving that one to the Browns. Week 16, you guys are home again. This time, NOLA Saints.
That's on Christmas, I believe. 425 on Christmas. Yep.
Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, 1 o'clock.
Christmas Eve. Yeah. Jarvis Landry return game. Landry's first time back in Cleveland, but I mean, don't get me wrong. That Saints team, they are legit. I really like the Saints. Their defense, top notch, and then that offense, a ton of weapons with Kamara pending that he'll be in the whole season, which many people think right now that he will be. That Saints team is really, really good. But if the Browns are looking for the playoffs and Watson's had time to shake all of his rust off and he's just coming off of a win in Baltimore, I'll give that one to the Browns at home. And in the middle of December, Browns fans will be coming out and yeah, probably 3 degrees and snow, but New Orleans won't be very used to that. And a standing ovation for Jarvis Landry.
You said what I was leaning one way, but you did mention this important fact. It is a Cleveland winter.
Yep.
Which changed it. Hold on 1 second. Go lay down. Sorry.
You're good.
But that changed me over to a win for that because of the fact that it is Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, with DeSean Watson, he's not used to it either. I mean, he's been in Houston his whole career, and one of the reasons why he didn't want to come to Cleveland originally was cold weather. But ultimately, the contract and the roster made him change his mind. But DeSean has to get used to that too. His game, I think it was just crazy wind when he played in Cleveland the last time. His ball was going all over the place, so he's not used to it either. But he'll have to get used to it.
But Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb are used to it.
That's true. Very true.
Now, New Year's Day, I think that's where you might have been thinking of on the holiday. What? Oh, sorry. New Year's Day, back on the road to finish your last 2 games. Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I'll give the Browns the win there. Not much else to say.
Honestly, if this one's a toss-up, only on the grounds that we don't know at what point during the season is Carson Wentz going to get hurt. Is he going to get hurt early and be back for the end of the season? Is he going to get hurt mid-season and miss the rest of it?
Yeah, but I don't think he got hurt. Did he get hurt in Indianapolis last year?
I'm not sure.
I don't think he did. I think he played the whole season last year. I don't think he's going to be bad, but he's not going to be anything special there.
I don't know. I think I've got a decent amount of faith in Wentz when he's healthy. And if he's healthy, I give this one to Washington.
Okay. Even with Watson and all that.
Yes, but I'm being honest. I know you're excited because DeSean Watson and what you gave up for him. I honestly don't think DeSean Watson's worth the hype.
Very, very hot take.
Like which is why why I was so stunned when you made the comparison to Garoppolo earlier. I think it was the receiving, in my opinion, it was the receiving core he had that made the receiving core made the quarterback in Houston, not the other way around.
I mean, sure.
I guess this season here is where, well, the last 6 games of this season will start showing which opinion's right.
Yep, for sure.
But now on to the last game of the season. On the road at Acrisure Stadium, Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think it mainly depends on how the Steelers are sitting, and same with the Browns. If that's like a win, whoever wins that game goes to the playoffs type game. To be honest with you, give me Pittsburgh. But I don't think that Pittsburgh's going to be in that position to win a game, go to the playoffs. I don't know if the Browns will be either. So in that case, then who really cares? But I said that Pittsburgh was going to split with Cleveland. Did I give Pittsburgh the win? I don't remember if I gave Pittsburgh the win week 3, but whatever I did, I'll do the opposite for this one.
I believe you gave Pittsburgh the win week 3, so you're going with Cleveland.
Yeah.
All right. Honestly, this one's another one that's going to come down to it. I think I gave you guys the win earlier in the season. And you know what? At this juncture, I'm going to stick with it. I think you guys sweep Pittsburgh this year because of the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So I'm giving Cleveland the win, which leaves us at your prediction for them 10-7.
Okay.
Which does get them solid wild card position.
Sure.
Because I think we can both agree that the AFC North is going to Cincy again.
I'm not sure. I mean, they have a really, really, really good squad up there, but I personally can't count out the Ravens, and I can't count out Cleveland. I think there's 3 legit teams that can all win the North, to be honest with you. And the Steelers, I think that they'll be around 500 like they always are, to be honest.
Okay. My record prediction for you guys is 9-7-1.
Okay. That one's high against the Jets.
Yeah. I see it being my prediction for the division. It's kind of funny because it's the same prediction I'm giving for the AFC East. Is that there's one front runner that's like standing above the rest, and then the other 3, it's all in how the season goes. And honestly, it could be a dogfight all the way around. Because like for the AFC East, I'm saying it's Buffalo's division to lose.
Right.
And it's up to the Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins. All fairly evenly matched to fight for second seed and a possible wild card spot.
Yeah.
My prediction for the North is pretty much the same. I think it's Cincy's division to lose right now. And between Pittsburgh, you guys, and Baltimore to fight for second. And honestly, I will say I don't think it's as even in the North as it is the East. I think Cleveland stands out, especially if they can weather the storm for the first 11 weeks. I can see Cleveland taking second. I can definitely say Cleveland has the best shot at taking second seed.
Yeah, that Bengals offense, absolutely electric with all those weapons. But the thing that concerns me a little bit about Cincinnati is their defense. But yeah, again, like I could easily see them winning that division.
Now I want to not only talk real quick before we get off here. about like your reporting, like Dog Pound Daily and the Schultz Report? Like how's that going, and like where can our fans find you?
Yeah, so Dog Pound Daily, I write for them pretty much whenever I feel the need to discuss something or to put something out there. Not really a set schedule, but I write there pretty often. So that's it, fan-sided. I do pretty much all of my reporting on Twitter at Browns with Noah, and then Instagram as well at the same tag at Browns with Noah. And just to quickly touch on Jordan Schultz, just very, very thankful to have the opportunity to work with such a highly respected insider in this business, and I'm learning a lot from him. So shout out to him too.
Okay. I didn't catch these earlier in the broadcast, but we did get a couple fan comments through here.
Okay.
In regards to the Houston game, Dante Oates, Browns are going to win by like 40. Houston sucks.
Yeah, DeSean Watson's going to come out to play that game. I can promise you that.
And I'm assuming this is in regards to Carson Wentz. He played all of last year.
Yep. One game away from that playoffs. Just lost. Could have beaten Jacksonville and they would have been in.
Which, as bad as Jacksonville sucked last year, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Now, I'm assuming from the way you talked before, even though things happen the way they are, you are still a Baker Mayfield fan?
I'll put it this way. I hope he has a successful rest of his career in Carolina. I mean, I started off really hot. I'll just put it briefly. He didn't get along too well with this front office. Had his differences with Kevin Stefanski. I'll say that.
For sure. To think, though, he did get a rough break. He went through, what, 5 head coaches in 4 years?
He did. He went through it. Yep.
And still brought you guys at least the moderate level of success you did. I mean, come on. What could have been a better feeling than seeing Baker lead your boys to kicking the Steelers' ass 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
Including the playoff game.
Yeah. Baker deserves the credit. I mean, he brought this city, turned it around, brought the city a playoff game, a playoff win, and one play away from the AFC Championship game.
Any you want to give any shout outs for where our fans can find you on any socials?
Just at Browns with Noah on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter is where I'm doing a lot of reporting right now. And then Dog Pound Daily.
All right, we'll definitely have to check him out, guys. Hold on real quick. I'm just gonna throw your tags up real quick. I should have done this sooner.
You good?
Hold on. You see it on screen. Follow those 2 Twitters to keep tabs with Noah. As always, I've been Joffrey. Follow me at Mooncutters, at TJE Joker. That's TJEGEOCUR. If you're watching this on Facebook or on Twitter, definitely follow the Running Force Productions YouTube page, and we'll be getting you more here shortly. Noah, thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I definitely enjoyed the conversation, the deep discussion, and hold tight for just a second once I end the broadcast.
Okay.